So what's up people on the interwebs, hope you're having a good day. So we're back with another Japan video, and in my last video I did 3 pros of being a woman in Japan. So today we're going to look at 3 negatives of being a woman in Japan. So this video is going to be quite serious, so just a little disclaimer, warning, or a sensitive issue, disclaimer, warning. What I'm going to say in this video is not meant to scare any of you. It's more just to bring awareness, since if you ever get into any of these situations, if you reply back with the comment of "I didn't know this was a thing in Japan," no one's going to give you any sympathy. So it's more just so you're aware of these types of situations and you know what's kind of best step to do in the future if you ever got into any of these sort of situations, or really it's more to prevent you guys to get into any of these situations in the first place. So let's dive into number 1. So online dating. Obviously, if you come into Japan, or maybe you want to come and move to Japan, you may also be thinking, I want to try dating some Japanese people and to give online dating a whirl. Now, online dating, obviously there's so many things that can go right or wrong with it, but just be really careful when you do online dating here, and make sure you do as much research as possible into the person you are considering going on a couple of dates with, or even starting a relationship. Since one negative with Japan is its affair rate. It's very high. It's very common for married people to have affairs in Japan. In Japan, their divorce rate, or the common reason why someone gets divorced in Japan, is because one of the people in the relationship has had an affair with another person. So please make sure, if you're going to date anyone online, that they are single and they are not in a marriage, as if you have any kind of relationship with a married person in Japan, even if it's a man or a woman, the husband, so let's say for a situation you dated a Japanese man in Japan, it turns out he is married to another woman. That woman can sue her husband for adultery, and she can also sue you, the mistress, for being in the adultery relationship as well. So you have a risk of being sued by the wife if you happen to end up in a adultery relationship from that married relationship. So really important you check that the person you're seeing is single and not in a relationship, just so it protects you from any chances of being sued as a mistress, or just anything to do with adultery in a married relationship. But this is also a pro as well, because obviously if I married a Japanese person, or if you married a Japanese person, and that Japanese person had an affair, then you can take him down and the mistress down as well. So you can take them both to the cleaners. And I'll tell you one thing, if I did marry a Japanese person and they had an affair, I'm definitely taking both of them to the cleaners, 100%. So it is a pro and a con. Just make sure you're not in the affair relationship so you don't get sued. So next one is abortion out here. So if you do get into a situation where you are pregnant and you want to abort the baby, it is pretty somewhat straightforward. Abortion in Japan, it's legal / illegal, but it is doable, but it's very expensive. So Japan, so abortion out here cost 100,000 yen, which is roughly between £500 to $700. And the biggest catch to it is, if you want to abort the baby, then obviously you need to consent to it, but you also need the father's consent to it as well. And this is where it can get tricky. And I've heard some horror stories of a foreigner getting pregnant out here, and the father of the baby didn't want to consent to the abortion. He wanted nothing to do with the relationship, because surprise, surprise, like in the first one where she thought he was a single Japanese man, it turned out he had a family and didn't want to get anything involved with it because it would have broken up his marriage and potentially cause the wife to sue him and her. So he kind of just disappeared. The sneaky loophole, what a lot of foreigners do around here to get out of needing the father's consent, is they normally grab one of their guy friends to pretend to be the baby's father, and then they get them to consent. But really important that you get both parties to consent into it, and it can cause a lot of mishaps. Now, even for the price, I don't know how much it is in America for abortion, and also abortion in America has got very complicated and very hard work out there, so maybe if you're American it might be better to stay in Japan and go through all the steps for an abortion. But definitely, I think if you're a British person, that is quite expensive for abortion, around £500. But if you are a resident living out here, it may be technically cheaper to fly home and get an abortion via the NHS than trying to go through the Japan steps, especially if you have any issues trying to get consent from the father that you want the abortion to go ahead. So just a potential suggestion that you could do if you are a British citizen. But yes, abortion is very expensive out here, and you also need the father's consent if you want to go ahead with abortion. And then my last one is quite a serious one, and that is rape in Japan. Now, ladies, this is really important. You really need to treat men like vampires out here, since if you just invited a Japanese man just to come into your house, you didn't have any intent for any sexual relationships to go ahead, and a sexual encounter does happen, if you tried to sue him and take him to court, the court of law will see just because you let him into your flat as that was consent for a sexual intercourse to go ahead. So really important to not let any single Japanese men into your flat alone. Make sure if you're going to let someone in that you know them pretty well, or you have some other girlfriends or guy friends in the apartment as well. You really need to treat them like vampires and don't let anyone into your house, as just that act of inviting them in can be classed as consent out in Japan. So the consent laws, or what they consider consent, is really vary, but make sure you just stay very safe and protected and just don't let anyone in your flat, as it's just bonkers. On that kind of law, you could technically let the postman in just to bring in a big box, and then if he has his way with you, they would see that as consent, just because you let him into your house to help for a completely different reason. So yes, those are my 3 negatives of being a woman in Japan. I'm hoping I haven't scared any of you. It's more for awareness. So if you do come out to Japan, and if you get into any of these situations, or really more avoid you to get into these situations, so you stay safe out here, because Japan is overall a pretty safe country, but there's a few couple laws and regulations they have that is definitely 2 steps backwards. A very common phrase for Japan, it is the land of contradictions, so just make sure you stay safe out here when you do eventually come, and hopefully with watching this video you now know what to do and avoid while being out in Japan. But overall, I hope you have found this video helpful and educational, and if you want to see some pros about being a woman in Japan, then definitely check out this video here. So hopefully I can at least boost your spirits a bit if you just feel a little bit too kind of stressed or paranoid, or more a little bit bummed, or just help to try and lighten your mood a bit if you have found this video quite daunting. But like I said earlier, it's more for awareness, not to scare you. But I will see you in the next Japan related video. Bye!